Hi, everybody. Welcome to episode 2, my continued conversation and launch of the Robert Fragoso podcast. Robert, how can everybody get a hold of you?
Best method is to either email or text message me. I prefer text messaging. Text my number at 949-572-4468 or email me at Robert Fragoso Jr. And I'm sure we'll put a link up on the podcast
There
at
you go.
gmail.com.
And you will. It's on the page, it's in the comments, it's in the links. There's also a bio attached with these first episodes. So with this episode, Robert, what are you looking for these days when you're looking for a flip? Let's move past the niche, what we did in the first show. What do you, I get the whole margin thing and yada, yada. You and I both joke about this all the time, where every investor has the invisible, if I don't make 20%, I'm not doing the deal profile that they all seem to live and die by. I mean, when you approach a project, what is it for you? Take me through that process. Let's just say, okay, got a house, somebody put me on it, the price looks right. Where do you start from there?
So price looks right. I look at timeline is one of the first things I look at, and return on investment. And so we're trying to, and the way I look at return on investment, it's not just on the investment itself. I look at the net to sales profit, and so basically if we're paying, if it's an all cash type situation, ideally you'd want it to be 15% or better. If it's a leverage position, then you'd want it to be like 10% net to sales or better, which means that the net that you make after paying, if there's debt service or commissions, closing costs, prorated property taxes, whatever, rehab, but the net in your pocket is 10% of your ARV. And so I look at ARV three different ways. I look at the safe number, the expectation, which is what we think we're going to end up with, and then there's an upside number, which if we get lucky, we might, there's maybe a comp that was situated slightly better, and if the market heats up, we're going to end up with that. That's kind of the upside number. So that I don't look at, hey, this is the number and base everything on that. I look at it three different ways and kind of make sure that we've got a viable deal in all formats. Even if we're paying cash, the reason the percentage of profit is generally higher is that, the situation really is that you can put out money in a loan and we can just lend money and really make anywhere between 8 and 10%, with no work product in a safer position than if we're doing the deal. So I account for that as a profit on the money itself, in addition to what the work product would bring. So if you're going to assess an investment, I think you have to look at it, fully. And if you're taking money out of something that's already earning money and putting it into this, and it's a at par thing, then it doesn't make as much sense if there's work product. If there's work product, you should get paid for that work product separately. So that's kind of how I analyze the deal.
Okay, how soon into it are you just mentally running the numbers from the beginning just to give yourself a ballpark? Take me through the process for you.
So let's say you called me with a transaction, right? You call me with a deal. Really, here's what I need. If you're going to text me the information, I need just include your name, and I guess I'll have your phone number, but name and email, and then also the property address, your purchase price, what you're estimating the rehab to be, the ARV that you're estimating, and if you have if it's not a straight fixer and you're planning on doing something funky or whatever, something to give me, don't just send me something that says, oh, it's a $900,000 rehab. Okay, clearly you're probably adding on or doing something unless it's a large apartment building, and so I just need to see kind of so I can analyze. Then we'll look it up. Usually the first day, if not within the second day, is give you numbers to what we see. Initially, we're just going to take your numbers, and if your numbers, just plug them right into our system, and if your numbers make sense, then we go to step 2. if your own numbers don't make sense, we just respond and say, based on your numbers, the deal doesn't make sense, and here's why. And we'll shoot you over kind of a spreadsheet off of the system that basically says, hey, here's your numbers the way we see them, and are we doing something wrong? And if you say no, that's right, and it doesn't make sense because let's say there's no profit at the end or not enough profit, then the deal dies there. So we're trying to give you a quick yes or a quick no, so that we don't kind of waste your time. Especially if it's a deal that you're in the process of tying up, and maybe you're thinking, hey, I can pay X, and we take your X number, plug it in, and really it should be T. Then you can adjust your purchase price. One of the other things that happens often there is that someone will say, okay, we've got a 2,000 square foot house. We're going to spend $30,000 in the remodeling, and my next question is, okay, send me some pictures if you've got pictures. So while you're walking through the property, even if it's your first walkthrough, snap a bunch of pictures with your phone so that you have them, because I will ask them. And then you don't want to have to just go out there again to just take a bunch of pictures. You're already there. You should make it a force of habit. Every time I'm walking through a house, I'm always snapping pictures, because it just helps you remember the property, and if you have to go over it with contractors, it makes more sense. So once you have these pictures, then I look at it and I'm like, okay, if you're doing 30,000 and it's a relatively high fixer, and your ARV is based on a house that has $100,000 remodel, then obviously we're going to have to adjust that ARV, because it's not to say that we can't sell it with the $30,000 rehab, but you just have to correlate the ARV with the right finishes to get to that point.
Just because we might get a casual investor, I was just texting someone about the shows being through the roof, and if you are an investor and not listening to this show, tell your friends, because Robert is literally dishing it out. Can you dumb it down for the mom and pops? And I don't mean the mom and pops that are listening. If you're an investor, I don't mean that in a negative way. You just don't know what a bread and butter investor looks like, and you're hearing it probably for the first time. Can you dumb it down a little?
Yeah. So if you're, let's say you're looking to get into the business and you've not done a flip yet. Maybe you sold your house and you're sitting on some cash right now. And you're like, hey, this is a great way to make money. I've seen it on TV. Everybody wins, right? And that, you actually learn how to do the numbers correctly. And part of knowing that is that money that you've got, that's cash, has a value to it and has a cost to it, whether or not you're assessing a cost to it. So meaning, if you have money sitting in, let's say, your Bank of America account, and it's earning 0% interest because you've just got it in a checking, and you're looking at this investment saying, wow, I can just put this money into this house and buy it, fix it up, and then resell it, and I make $50,000, and you think that's a good deal, by all means, that might be a good deal for you. The way I would look at that is say, okay, if I've got $500,000 that's sitting in my checking account, and I lent that money out and didn't have to go out and organize contractors and I just lent it to another investor, then I would make, let's call it 10%. If you made a 10% annualized return, that's the $50,000 there annualized. So if you then flip a house with that same $500,000 and you're in and out of it in, let's say, 6 months, and you make $50,000, you would have made $25,000 anyway in just the interest, having lent it out with no work product, right? So now you did all of this work product for $25,000 over 6 months, which is basically, I don't know, $4,000 a month, roughly, for $3,900 or something, like $3,800.
Plus or minus.
Is that worth it for you to have done that? And in many cases, the answer is no. So what you should have done is assessed that cost of funds, whether it's your money or not, labeled it for whatever you could get. And you know, I may be able to get a higher return because I'm in the lending space also, whereas someone else might have to go through a broker or what have. So their cost is going to be a little bit different. But the point is that there's a cost of funds, whether you're assessing it or not. You know, is might be an error. Also, if you're looking at the transactions from a fix and flip standpoint, you know, you also have to look, if you're a mom and pop who's just starting and getting into the business, that you probably earn money doing something else, right? This isn't your full-time job.
Right.
This is going to take away from that full-time job. And so while it's taking away from that full-time job, there is a cost to that as well. And so it's going to be slow. If you're an entrepreneur, and let's say you're a real estate agent and you're normally out prospecting and doing all of this stuff, you know, if you're not, you know, if you don't have the right systems or a partner in place to help you kind of mitigate that, what happens is that your personal sales are going to drop. And so that is also a cost to doing the deal. And so if you're not looking at these transactions properly, you know, you may find yourself actually not making any money, even though you end up with the check at the end of the day, if that makes sense.
No, makes sense. Good explanation. How can people get a hold of you?
So best way, I would say text me is 949-572-4468. Email Robert Fragoso Jr. at gmail.com is the second best way.